Money, money, money must be funny in the rich man's world.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey Aurora, and from me. Well, reluctant as I am to say good night to my cuddle muddles. Okay, Aurora, okay. Okay. They want to cuddle with me. I want to cuddle with them too, so maybe they're picking up something. But since I don't want to interfere with what Anna Porter wants to know, I will plunge right in with her question, which is, while I'm stroking the girls, I have to tell you, sorry. Lady C, is it true that Harry and Meghan's money troubles are affecting their marriage? Oh dear, I wonder why we would ask that question. Because the answer is a huge and resounding yes. Meghan doesn't take kindly to being opposed by anyone or anything. I don't know if those of you who read my book will remember when Gina Nelthorpe Cowan tried to point out to Meghan one or two material facts of life about being involved with Harry. And she coldly blew her off and said words to the effect, well, you know, no negativity, it's our time. And my understanding is that Meghan's response to any failure I should say, to realize her dreams and her ambitions, since she is never at fault, it's always someone else who is at fault. And Harry has been found to be very wanting. You know, when they were in New York for, I can't remember what it was. I can't remember what award it was. There was a huge row that was overheard in their hotel, with Meghan berating Harry and Harry saying, oh, I remember what it was. When Harry was giving his speech to the packed assembly of the United Nations, with, I think, 30 people, of whom 29 and a half were their people, and the 1,000 other seats were totally occupied by ghosts. Well, she and he had a row because, she wanted to sit with him on the podium. And for all we know, she might even have wanted to introduce him and maybe regulate traffic. And he wasn't having any of it. And he pleaded with her, oh, Maxie, baby, why is it that I can never please you? I understand from people who have their ear close to that ground that there's an awful lot of, oh, I can't please you. I did the best I could. It's not good enough. I mean, look at it. You've made us targets. You've made us, I better get Gordon on the phone. Gordon. And she's made me a target. I can't cope with this. I need to be senior senator of California, and also I can't be in this broken down house with only 16 bathrooms. I mean, really, you know, what am I going to do with all the crap that I carry around? I've got offloaded at least 18 times a day. Gordon, please, can I The imagination boggles, doesn't it? Well, I gather that there is a lot of recrimination and a lot of dissatisfaction. And let's see how long they tick over, because if it turns out to be to her advantage for them to part ways, I have an awful feeling the glue that's held them together is just going to dry up. ME23 says, Lady C, one of Britain's leading writers, has attacked the role of sensitivity readers, in quotes, saying they get excited, in quotes, by controlling others' freedom of expression. In a passionately argued commentary, Hanif Kureishi blames an element of the left, quote unquote, which he says is, quote, bursting with aggressive self-righteousness and is puritanical and self-defeating, end of quotes. I think I know what you think, but would love to hear what you have to say. Well, may I make the point, first of all, that Hanif Kureishi is avowedly left-wing, and he is now agreeing with everything I have been saying for some time. And I am not avowedly any wing. I'm neither avowedly left-wing nor right-wing. I am avowedly liberal, small l, conservative, small c, who believes in a harmonious, socialized society where we are parts of a civilization based upon sterling and noble values. You cannot be good without being noble, and you cannot have a good society without good people in it. Now, Hanif Kureishi is absolutely right. His comments have hopefully inflicted or will give others the ability to inflict a wounding blow on the metropolitan elite, of which dear Mr. Kureishi has always been a fully paid up member. Those of you who don't know who Hanif Kureishi is, I'll tell you, he's 68 years old. He's a prize-winning author, playwright, and filmmaker. Sorry, I'm looking at Aurora. His 1990 novel, The Buddha of Suburbia, would be butchered today if he had written it. But fortunately, he didn't. According to him, it would be butchered in this atmosphere of self-righteousness and trepidation, this North Korea of the mind. He is dead against, as am I, and as am any other writer who has any appreciation of history and of the role that thought and writing play in a civilization. He is dead against the hiring by publishers of censors to review texts of previous works for offensive comment. excuse me, the values of yesterday are not the values of today. The values of today are not going to be the values of 50 years from now. Anyway, there has been a lot of censorship going on and rewriting. James Bond by Ian Fleming. They're stripping his works of terms that are deemed sexist and racist. I mean, what are they playing at? Roald Dahl's novels have been changed to get rid of anything that those delicate young flowers might find offensive. Kureishi wrote a wonderful screenplay several years ago that was made into a movie called My Beautiful Laundrette. It was about an interracial gay couple, and this was during Mrs. Thatcher's age. He has been appointed a professor in creative writing at Kingston University since 2013. And he quite rightly said he doubted whether he would have a career if he had started writing today. He said, and I'm going to quote, "One of the things I've noticed about my students is that they are already inhibited. This is a trend I've noticed with other students and also with editors at publishing houses. Whether their work will be condemned for sexism, racism, cultural appropriation, and so on. This is the contemporary anxiety for young writers today. Some people are turned on and excited by the power of controlling others' speech and freedoms." He said when he was writing The Buddha of Suburbia, which, according to him, is full of racial insults and lewd, politically incorrect language, he was determined to write with as much disinhibition and freedom as possible. "I would make it as dirty and funny as I felt in my mind it should be. I wouldn't hold back or hesitate to say anything I truly felt. It wasn't my job to deliberately shock, but to tell the story in the most candid way. I don't want to live in an atmosphere of fear and inhibition, where writers are afraid of expressing their true selves for fear of offending someone or other. It is the work of great writers to turn the world upside down. It is not our job to please, but to challenge, to make us think differently about our bodies, our sexuality, politics, and normativity." There we have it. He's absolutely right. And it brings to mind when it must have been in my Queen Elizabeth, one of my books that I wrote. The American publishers objected to my use of the word niggardly. And I said, "I'm sorry." They said, on the basis of the fact that niggardly might be confused with a word that is now regarded as tremendously offensive, and which is offensive. Except the two words have totally different meanings and totally different roots. And I dug my heels in. I said, "I'm sorry, it's staying." I said, "I don't care who's offended. The word doesn't have any relationship whatsoever to the other word that it is being confused with." I said, "I'm not changing it," and I point blank refused to change it, and it stayed in. I mean, we cannot surrender to ignorance. That's why, for instance, I wear my Moretti Veneziana. Moretti Veneziana were symbols of racial inclusivity created by the Venetians who traded with the North Africans. They are of splendid North African noble men, usually and sometimes women. They are anything but racist. They are anti-racist. They promote racial inclusivity, and anybody who doesn't know that should learn. They have no right to object to racial inclusivity symbols just because they're too ignorant to know about them. And anybody who's that ignorant, having been told, should embrace the knowledge and should be glad that they have been corrected. I don't for a second go along with any of these forms of ignorance which are closing people's minds and restricting their lives and their visions. I love blackamoors. I collect blackamoors. I'm Jamaican. I'm from a world where there's everything from jet black to lily white, and everybody rubbed along perfectly happily. I have other statues and other busts and other ornaments of white peasants. Am I going to be condemned for being a snob because I have a shepherd and a shepherdess, obviously European? No, nobody would think of doing it. Well, I dig my heels in. I love my blackamoors and I collect them proudly. Nobody collects something that's a symbol of something they loathe or disrespect. They only collect things that are symbols of things or people that they like or love. And as my brother used to say, he loved black people because when we were growing up, the servants were unfailingly nice and kind to us. And they were. Black Jamaicans are so wonderfully loving. White Jamaicans can be as well, but less systematically than black Jamaicans. It's a prejudice, but it's in favour, not against. PC Bright Lights says, politically correct bright lights, is it? I hope not. Hello, Lady C. Do you think perhaps Megan Smollett suffered brain damage in the womb if her mother was using drugs? Thank you for your videos. Love to you and the four-leggeds. PC Bright Lights. There is a possibility. Depending on what Doria took, and I understand Doria, and I understand this from people who knew Doria at the time. Doria was heavily into certain substances that were then illegal. Could they have had an effect upon the fetus? Well, who knows? But there's definitely something amiss with Meghan. You only need to look at the way she functions to see that this is a woman whose amygdala is seriously different from yours or mine. There are not sufficient studies done on the effect of the substances that Doria used to avail herself of to be able to make a definitive judgment on the matter. There is also the possibility that she laid off the substances for the length of time that she was pregnant. That is a possibility that needs to be factored into the equation. So maybe Meghan's lack of scruples and conscience, as is suggested by her conduct, has nothing to do with any drugs Doria took or didn't take, pregnant or not pregnant, but could just be innate. I say that for what it's worth. Lee Hoffman Strawn says, "My darling Lady C, what are your thoughts on Prince William of Gloucester and Julie Starclough? Interesting to know your thoughts." And I'm going to read this together with Aurora's fur. Aurora's right here beside me, and the fur's blown up into my nose. Sorry. And Denise Jangrande says, "Hello, Lady C. I recently watched a video about Prince William of Gloucester and his unfortunate death in a plane crash in August 1972. He was in a relationship with model and stewardess Julie Starclough. Do you have any insights about the late Prince William of Gloucester? I love your humour and appreciate your stories." I've read these two together and I'm going to answer it. To those of you who don't know, Prince William of Gloucester was divinely handsome. He was the Queen's first cousin. He was the person after whom the present Prince of Wales was named. I have friends who knew him. I didn't know him, but I have friends who knew him. And he was divinely handsome, very, very dashing, rather intelligent, and was in love with a Hungarian called Julie Starclough. She was divorced. They wanted to marry. The Queen suggested that they wait a while, and he was posted to, if I remember correctly, Japan. He worked in the embassy there, and she wanted to give them time to cool off, but she was not averse to them getting married. That's very important. But she wanted to be sure that the marriage would last, because it was going to cause a whole heap of problems for her and make waves. One of the problems that she was going to have to face was her mother's insurmountable distaste for divorced people within the royal family. But she was prepared to face it. I know as a fact that while he was friendly with Julie Starclough, and if I remember correctly, I'm going back a little while now, but they had sort of broken up. And he then had a romance with Nicole Seif, who married Johnny Bulgari afterwards. You know, Bulgari, the jewelry house, sorry. And her husband, her ex-husband, was married afterwards to a friend of mine. I just make those points for what they're worth. And the marriage was mooted between them as well. Gigi came back on the scene, and there was, I think, some element of indecisiveness and confusion as to which divorcee he was going to end up with. He then was involved in this plane crash and died. Gigi Starclough and he were definitely in love for a while. Would they have got together again and married? I think nobody can actually say that the answer is yes, because Nicole Seif was also involved with him by this time. So I just say that for what it's worth. But he was divinely attractive, evidently. Oh, and I'll tell you better. Princess Michael of Kent set her cap for him. That's right. Before Prince Michael, she had her eye firmly trained on Prince William of Gloucester. Now that's gossip. That's not generally known. Wicked moi. Blade Runner says, "Hello, Lady C. Thank you for adding your voice to all the topics you discuss. I would be very interested to hear more regarding the adoption process in the UK, specifically your experience and the corruption. I think bad behaviour should always be called out. I appreciate this is a sensitive topic and you may have to deploy your artfully placed tact in certain places. As ever, thank you for your time, wealth of experience and knowledge. Love and good health to you and yours." I can go off my own experience, which was that the system is not for the welfare of the child or the placing of children in the most advantageous situations for them. It is riven with self-interest. The courts function, one case will cost £1 million or £2 million. The judges, are there to judge, but there are solicitors, barristers that are specialists in the area, and when you're involved in the process, you see how cynically opportunistic and quite frankly destructive some of them are. I speak from experience on that matter, by the way. Not that it involved me personally, but it involved someone else. As for the social workers, half of them are power-crazed apparatchiks. And I'll tell you better, a few years ago, there was a scandal within the legal and adoption circles, because the Eastern European ambassadors were complaining that their citizens were being targeted by social workers on frivolous grounds, so that white, blonde, blue-eyed Eastern European girls mostly would be taken into care to be placed with families, so that many of these local authorities could meet their adoption targets. Because it involved children and the family court, it never was publicized, because the family courts do not allow reporting on ongoing cases in the family courts. The situation, I don't know what it's like now, but I can tell you I know from that experience what it was like then. Corrupt to the nth degree. And some of the fosterers, they're on they were in those days, £600 and £700 a week per child. So it didn't suit the fosterers to have the children adopted out. It didn't suit the local authority to have the children adopted out, unless they were a particular type of child who could be easily got rid of. Otherwise, nobody wanted other types of children. So the system was chock-a-block of unwanted children, except there were some adoptees who were so desperate that they would have taken any child, but they were deemed unsuitable. Why? Because the social workers are kept in work and they have a full workload if there are bodies in the system. That's right. So they're protecting their jobs. The lawyers are protecting their jobs, because a case will involve the father, the mother, the child. So you need solicitors and barristers for the father, for the mother, for the child as well. It's called a guardian ad litem. So there are 3 sets of solicitors and barristers for every court hearing. You're looking at £100,000 a hearing, and there are endless hearings. Well, the nice social worker who was dealing with me, she told me, don't waste your time in Britain. Go abroad. And I took her advice. I went abroad. I went to a country where it was possible to get infants, because the older the child is when it is adopted, is the more damaged it is. We're speaking about children, vulnerable children who are damaged by the system, by the politics of the system, by the financial greed motivating the system. by the fashionable theories motivating the system, by the nonsensical idea that it is better to keep a child in care on the off chance that an unsuitable parent might become suitable than place it with a family that would give it a good life. And now I'm going to go to the final question, which is Oriel GB, who says, my husband and I were refused as adopters because I was told my home was too clean and tidy and we were too well off. My husband was the proprietor of an engineering company. I was already a childminder, especially for sick babies, and to give mums respite after giving birth and who were struggling with various health problems. Social services knew of my experience, my home, and my background. SS is the right name for them. Oriel GB's experience is not rare or unique. A friend of mine, who I was helping to adopt, was refused by Westminster on the grounds that she had said that she was a single mother, that she would have a nanny to help out with the child. They refused to allow the adoption on the grounds that she would have a nanny. I've heard of other cases where people from privileged backgrounds were denied the opportunity in this country because they were from privileged backgrounds, and that was used as a reason for preventing them adopting, on the grounds that to inflict a child with a privileged background would deprive it of the chance to lead an ordinary life. Now, you see about politics, and you see about philosophy, and you see about craziness. This is why Thoreau said the least government is the best government. When you get people put into positions of power, when you have a bureaucracy that is calling shots left, right, and centre, that it really should not be calling, to prevent one child being somehow taken advantage of, they will allow 1,000 children to have their lives destroyed in the system. Where is the logic or the decency or the justification for thinking like this? And it is rife, and it's not got better because I started looking into adopting about 35 years ago. It's got worse. I know of a situation that I observed with my own two eyes, where a social worker was so determined to prevent a grandmother from gaining custody of her grandchild that the woman lied about all sorts of things with the grandmother and with the other person who was being proposed as a guardian. They were determined to wrest this child away from the family because it was a beautiful little girl, blonde girl. And they actually wanted to place the child with, I'm not even going to go into it. The whole thing was just depraved. That's what we're coping with. And the courts don't seem to understand that a lot of these social workers are power-crazed political apparatchiks who are little better than sadists or sociopaths. There was a very good movie with Rosamund Pike in it. I think it's called, I can't remember what it's called now. It's about an evil social worker. I think it might have been called Gone Girl. Well, they don't only exist on film. I have seen them in real life as well. And sometimes when they're not evil, they are so dumb, incompetent, heartless, thoughtless, inadequate that they may as well be evil, motivated by evil or sociopathic, because the effect is the same and they destroy the children's lives. I feel very strongly about it. And is there anything that can be done about it? It's very difficult because the family courts in this country, and I suspect in the United States of America as well, are private and nobody is allowed to speak about anything that happens in them. Charming, no? Talk about the ideal way to say you're protecting the child while you're actually protecting those who are destroying the child's life. The system was much better when it was much more informal. I know that from many people who are involved with it. Yes, there were occasional things that shouldn't have happened, but the success rate far outstripped the negative. Now it's the absolute opposite way around. And sorry to be so heavy. I hope this has not been too onerous for you. And if you have found it interesting, or if not this, the rest of it interesting, please keep your questions and comments coming in, and on any subject you would find interesting and desirable. Okay? Thank you so much. God bless. And if you have enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care. Bye-bye.